Hi everyone, welcome back to my YouTube channel. I am Molly. I'm a mum of two little kids here in England. I have a 5-year-old biological little girl and a 2.5-year-old little boy who my husband and I adopted back, I can't say last year anymore, in 2020. We started the adoption process in 2019. We adopted our little boy, we brought our little boy 7 months later, adopted him within the year, and we have been a family of 4 ever since, and it has been bliss. I have been meaning to make this video for about 8 months, but life gets in the way, and I've been really wanting to log our kind of school and education journey, because for me and many parents in the adoption community, education is such a big deal and a big issue. Adoption UK are flagging education as one of their kind of key priorities in their strategy to make sure that schools are trauma informed, they are prepared to support children who have experienced the care system or are adopted, have gone through any kind of trauma, neglect or loss. And so I wanted to touch on my experience so far in preparing our little man for school. A bit of background, my little man is currently 2.5. He is one of the youngest in his year. He will be starting, or should be starting, school next September, so not this September, next September. However, we are planning to put him in the preschool nursery of the school he will be going to anytime from this September or potentially January. So we have been looking into schools probably about 12 months now. For those of you who have been following me for a while, you will know that I already have a 5-year-old big miss, and we pretty much selected the primary school that she would go to, knowing that that is a school that we wanted little man to go to. My big miss is not adopted. She does not get priority admission like my little man will, but fortunately she got into the school that we wanted them both to go to, and everything has worked out so far. So about 12 months ago, we started looking into schools for little man properly. We obviously had started building a relationship with the primary school we had in mind through Big Miss. But like I said, my Big Miss is not adopted. We're treating it as a whole kind of different cycle, and almost starting from scratch in terms of preparing the school for little man. So I'm going to talk about some of the things that we did, some of the things we are doing now, and some of the things we have as next steps. So for those of you who don't know, if you are adopting and you have a child through adoption, your child is eligible for priority admission. Basically, they come at the top of the list in, over catchment areas and siblings, so they have a really strong chance of getting into any school in terms of primary school that you want them to get into. So for us, we had a whole field of primary schools to look into. Originally we started looking into maybe 2 or 3 in our local area, and we pinpointed very specific things that we wanted to look into before we even started having discussions with the head teachers. The first thing that we did was stalked their website and their Ofsted reviews. Now, I'm not always one to go solely on Ofsted reviews, because I'm a big believer that you can catch a school or an early years setting in a particularly bad day, and it might not be an accurate reflection of kind of a year. But we did read Ofsted reports, we went on the websites and we read, for example, their safeguarding policies, their behaviour policies, particularly the behaviour policy and the strategy, because as a parent to a child who is traumatised, we as adopters have so much training about therapeutic parenting and how the typical reward, discipline, punishment, behaviour strategies in the home are completely just not workable for our children, because their brains are not wired to respond to that. We want to create safe environments where there is no shaming, no punishment. We use therapeutic and gentle approaches in how we discipline them and set boundaries around their behaviour. So really we were looking at behaviour strategies. We were looking at things like traffic light systems, where they put children on red and they take playtime off them, or kind of endorse some kind of punishment. We were looking for behaviour ladders where a child moves up and down. We were looking for all these kind of red flags where we just thought, no, not suitable, not suitable, not suitable. Now, in our local area, there was no school at all that had a suitable behaviour strategy for a child who had had an adverse childhood experience. However, A lot of the behaviour strategies did have an odd sentence that said, you know, behaviour strategies may be amended for children with adverse childhood experiences. So we took that as a signal that we could have that discussion with the head teacher to find out more. And that's exactly what we did for Big Mrs School. Before I move on to the conversations with the head teacher, we also looked at how pupil premium was spent. So pupil premium is a pot of money that the school receives from children who may be from low-income families, or children who are in the care system, or children who have been adopted. They are entitled to claim that money and then spend it as they see fit to support either that child or the whole school. Now, as far as I understand, it is completely the school's decision on how they spend that money. However, I wanted my little man to be a part of a school where it was evident that the money was going to be spent to support him. So, for example, we were looking at how the school spent it previously. A lot, for example, could have been on teaching assistance, it could have been on language support, it might have been on free school trips for the class. So we were looking just to see how much pupil premium the local schools had been entitled to and what they had kind of allocated it on. So we were looking for things that kind of signalled that that school maybe had adopted children or children in the care system within that school. So trauma training, attachment training, trauma-informed schools, maybe one-to-one support, anything like that was a real thumbs up for us. Once we'd done all of our initial research, we reached out to the head teacher straight away just to kind of express our interest and share our plans that we were preempting little man would attend the school but also the preschool, and we were really interested to discuss some things around behaviour strategies, how they envision transition periods looking like, how they've supported children previously in similar dynamics, and that is exactly what we did. Fortunately for us, our Big Mrs School's head teacher was really receptive and really pleased to kind of accommodate some conversations earlier on. Had a lot of emails back and forth about the behaviour strategy. A lot of you who will have followed me for a while will know that I go a bit overboard just because I'm a protective parent. I would send emails with about 20 questions because obviously I am keen to ensure that my little man is going to a school and a preschool that is fit for him and I feel comfortable leaving him with. So we'd had a lot of initial conversations over email with the head teacher, and at the start of the school year he invited myself and my husband in for a sit-down conversation just to discuss little man more. We had some questions and he had some things to share with us as well. So I'm not going to go into great detail about the conversation, but just for some context, we went in and challenged a little bit about the behaviour strategy and said, look, you know, we're not happy that it is reward punishment. The behaviour strategy actually had the word punishment in it. I expressed my greatest concerns and my, you know, concerns that even my big miss was on this behaviour strategy or behaviour system and that I wasn't pleased with it. She wasn't coping well with it. And, you know, the head teacher shared that there are already some pupils within the school that just the behaviour system does not apply to them. So whilst we're working with the school to try and share more appropriate models, we are confident, you know, knowing that at least the first kind of plan of action is that little man will not have any kind of reward punishment behaviour system applied to him, and that teachers can take a more therapeutic, gentle approach. We then move the conversation to ask about training and how they envision pupil premium being spent to support little man, and we kind of suggested, you know, trauma training, attachment training, which the head teacher had already mentioned to us. They had shared presentations of training they'd been on, book resources that we've been going back and forth. So we've been building a really good relationship with the head teacher and had some really productive conversations. The next part of the conversation went to transitions. So for my little man, when he started nursery and when he moved from the baby room to the toddler room in nursery, we have really long transition periods, which you'll have seen in my starting or preparing for nursery video, which I will link below. I obviously expressed that this is something we would want to do with our little man so that he kind of transitions very gradually and very comfortably into preschool, and there would be absolutely no leaving him screaming or crying for me or daddy and teacher dragging him through the door, because ultimately he needs to know that we are not vanishing off the face of the earth, since he has already gone through so many losses and separations in his life that this needs to be handled really, really sensitively. Other things that we asked the head teacher was things like, how do you ensure continuous professional development in your staff on attachment and trauma and kind of key issues for children who are impacted by trauma, neglect or loss? How do they promote inclusivity in different family dynamics? So I've shared before, for example, my little boy is dual heritage, also adopted. When they're doing things like Mother's Day and Father's Day and they're doing family trees, how do they plan on handling this sensitively? Do they have a procedure in place where they would contact the parent to flag up beforehand that this is going to be a topic they're doing, so we can preempt any challenges or concerns or triggers and have the conversations at home? Or, you know, just try and manage that again a little bit more sensitively for little man. So I think it's really about having early conversations, not being afraid to challenge things, and really being the champion and the voice for your little ones. That is where we are at so far. We are currently waiting for little man to get his preschool place accepted. We are thinking that we will start him in January. We are thinking that because he is one of the youngest in his year and we are experiencing some developmental delays, that we are most likely going to, I hate saying hold him back a year, I think the correct term is we're going to go for natural entry, which means he will be going the year after he is meant to go for his age. We're doing that because we think he would benefit from being the eldest in his class, having that prolonged time in nursery and in preschool, having longer transitions, and just not setting him up to struggle with peers who have 12 months on him. That is where we're at. I'm going to continue to do these school diaries. They are more for me just to share where we're at as opposed to give anyone any advice. And I think they'll be really interesting for me to look back on as well. But if any of you have been through this stage already, I'm really curious to know what your key barriers have been, what your challenges have been, but also what your successes have been with school. I am on with reading again this book at the minute, The Trauma and Attachment Aware Classroom. We got this for little man's nursery, but I think it's something I need to start reading in preparation for preschool. I'll be certainly signposting whoever his key worker / teacher is to this book, maybe even buying them a copy. But it is really, really good, just the basics as a parent to understand as well what schools really should be doing to support our children. Thank you for watching this ramble. It is more of a ramble as opposed to one of my normal videos. But like I said, I'm keen to do some of these diary videos. But if you do have any other kind of video requests, please leave suggestions or comments or questions below. Always open to questions and comments. You can find me on Instagram at MollyMamaAdopt, so please do not be shy. Message me, share your stories, your queries, concerns, questions. I'm more than happy to speak with you. Thanks for watching, everyone. Bye.